Okay, hello everyone. My name is Toan Lam, and I'm your host today. Welcome to World Affairs. I'm your host. I am a TV and podcast host, a motivational speaker, and a storyteller. And this is a special month, and we got a special guest for y'all. It's not only Pride Month, but as y'all may know, June 20th was also World Refugee Day. And to uplift stories of refugees and people with these amazing stories about their journey to America and beyond, we are going to celebrate Edafe Okporo, author and Asylee to activist, and author of this book, Asylum, a Memoir Manifesto. And as y'all know at home, if you guys are not watching right now and you're on the radio or listening to the podcast, you could tell that I was a big fan of this book. There's a lot of sticky notes and like little hearts and stars here. And I just know that you'll love it as much and it'll resonate with you as much as it did for me. A little bit more about World Affairs. World Affairs, as many of y'all know, is a San Francisco nonprofit. It also has this popular radio show, and it's a forum that explores ideas beyond borders, one story at a time. And a little bit about my, I already call him my soul brother, because once you read this book, it just resonates no matter who you are, it resonates with you. Because to me, this book is not just about your story and about giving back and using your story to lift and gift and shift people, but it's also about self-love and love. Right. So welcome, Edafe.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
The way you talk about the book makes me feel like I have done my job, because they say that a good story helps other people share their story. And
I love
that was what I was trying to do when I was writing the book. And I'm grateful I'm in a conversation with you, because our experiences are similar in some way, even though how we came into this country is different, but we have a lot of similarities.
Yeah, and we have different backgrounds. I was a refugee and we were sponsored, but when we came here, it was in disarray, and we'll talk about that too, how there's really no roadmap for refugees or asylum seekers, right?
Yeah.
But for me, this resonated so deeply because not only as a gay man and as a refugee, and about somebody that really wanted to make my family proud, but then hiding myself and my authentic self, and that struggle and that juxtaposition. I mean, I shed a couple tears. I laughed out loud. So this just took me on a big roller coaster. So thank you so much for having the courage to share your story. And your story started in Warri, Nigeria, right? Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like there and how scary it was to be gay? Because as a homosexual, as you know, you could be killed there.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I didn't know anything about being a gay person. And
who does? Right?
Yeah. And at that time, it was pretty like easygoing. I was the last in a family of four. I loved playing soccer, but it was in the soccer pitch that I discovered that I am kind of different.
And how so?
Because soccer is like very masculine game. It's like strength, speed, and I was kind of effeminate in a way.
Soft energy.
And people were like, "Oh, are you gay? Why are you playing like this? You shouldn't play here. Go play with the girls." So that was when I was noticing that I was different. And when I finally discovered that I have this attraction towards other men, it was difficult for me to step into that role, because there's like so much shame and hate and rejection of gay people. When I was very young, one guy died in our neighborhood. We call him Uncle Tony. And people say, Uncle Tony died because he's gay, but he died of HIV. So that was all I know about gay people. It's like, oh, gay people die of HIV. So I was afraid to like even...
I don't want to be gay and I didn't watch HIV. I thought about that too. And then people always say gays are pedophiles, right?
So there's also a narrative in our neighborhood, like Uncle Tony is a pedophile, stuff like that. But when I was growing up, that was all I know about being a gay person. So when I discovered that I have attraction towards other men, I ran into the church and became a pastor.
And back up, that was, what age were you when you were like, wait, I'm different? And then what age did you become then a pastor?
So I discovered myself at the first time at about 13, 14 years. I became a pastor at 19.
Wow.
So I had to leave my home. When I get into college, that was when the attraction was like very strong. So I couldn't really like handle that kind of attraction. I became a pastor because I wanted not to be in that position that Uncle Tony was.
So that was basically being a pastor that was your beard. You were hiding.
I was hiding.
Right? And a lot of gay people, they hide behind their work. They overwork, so they don't have time to be with the opposite sex, right?
Yeah.
And that part resonated with me because I also delved into a lot of my work, you know, in college and internships and all that. But I think also when you were a little kid, when you started, you were in the debate team, and the debate was more known in Africa as it is here in America as of that girls talk. It's more of a girl thing.
Yeah.
And then like, I also love women. Women are superior sex, but women, right? You know, I just connected with them more, but then dad and uncles and friends are like, wait, why are you hanging out with the girls so much? You know what I mean? Right. And that resonated with me too.
It was so difficult for me to like feel like the feminine part of me should be expressed. So I have to tamp it down because if I express it, people frown upon it. So I was like, who am I? Like, who am I if I cannot play with the girls, participate in the debate team? Then if I go to the guys, they're like, no. So like, where do I fit into all those things? But when I was younger, my family were kind of religious in a way, but we were practicing the African traditional religion.
Which is? Explain to the people.
So there's a tradition that's like Igbe, they worship the water goddess. So the women will tie white cloth on their chests, they'll put a basin on their head and fresh water on it. And like the gods, they're worshiping it. They will have lamb, they will have yam. It's like a tradition.
It's a celebration with water. Yeah.
With water. So that was all I know as like growing up. Then during the Y2K, 1999, December 31st, we heard that the world is going to end on January 1st, 2000. And if you're not a Christian, you wouldn't go to heaven. So like everybody ran into the church, they were praying. And that night, my mother gave her life to God and she became a Christian. Subsequently, my father would give his life to God and became a Christian. And they baptized me into the Christian religion too. So when I exhibited the attraction towards other men when I was in school, in high school, I was reported to the authorities. So my parents, they took me to a pastor to pray
the gay away,
that I shouldn't be gay.
Yeah, that part really struck me when you were like, they took you, your parents are taking you. Like parents, usually you would think that they're your safe haven, you know, and protect you, but they're taking you to pray this gay away, and you're praying your authentic self away. Like, what was going on through your head?
I didn't know what to do. And I felt bad for my mother because I'm like, geez, she was sitting with me there. She would prepare food. She would make sure I was fine. I didn't want her to like continue with this suffering. So I was like, I pretended like the spirit entered me and like
you had to pretend that,
I was rolling on the floor like the spirit.
You're like,
like the spirit left my body, and the pastor was like, the gay spirit have left his body.
Wow. So you had to pretend.
Yeah, I had to pretend because it was like I have to fast. I couldn't eat. I was praying all the time. So when in college, when I discovered that I still have attraction towards other men, I became a pastor because I felt like if I become a pastor, I can pray, I can fast, I can fight this stuff. And as a pastor, I'm not expected to have a girlfriend until I'm married.
Yeah.
So it was like a safe way for people. People are not going to ask me, where is your girlfriend?
Yeah. No expectation.
To get married, no expectation.
But one thing I love about this book so much is that you really go there. I mean, you wrote about like how pastors, and there's been some hooking up with, you know, behind the scenes with, right? I mean, can you explain a little bit more about that? How like there's like this veil, right, of secrecy.
So I came out as gay because of an interaction I had with a minister. So when I was a pastor, one time I wanted to explore my sexual orientation. So I went on a dating app. I was chatting with somebody, and the guy said it's DL. So that's
which is down low.
Down low. Yeah. So it doesn't share any pictures.
Yeah.
So we decided to meet in a public square. When we met, we drove into a place. It was like a church. So we went upstairs. It's a vestry, and he told me that I'm a priest. Don't tell anybody. I told them that my friend's younger brother is going to church and is going to stop by. So I didn't do anything with him, but I knew that this is the life I'm going to live, and I didn't want to live that kind of
So
life.
it's like you're looking into a crystal ball and you're saying, I don't want to go there. I don't want that to be me.
I don't want that to be my life.
Yeah.
And
that was what age?
I was 19.
19, okay.
And they called me that my grandmother was sick. So I left there and I went straight back home.
Now, was that before you moved in with your auntie? Because they sent you away to live with auntie, right?
Yeah, I lived with my auntie for 5 years before I went to college. So from college, I became a pastor. And when I was a pastor, I met this other pastor that is a priest of a church that's hiding in sexual orientation. And I received a call that my grandmother is sick. And I was going back to my village, and I was just saying to myself, I'm not going to be like this guy. I'm going to hide who I am. And the next day I went to the church. The guy was preaching against gay people. It was like, gay people will go to hell, they will die, they will be destroyed, homosexuality is a sin. When I got home, my grandmother was very sick, very, very sick. So my mother went to the other room to prepare stuff for my grandmother. And I knew that my grandmother was going to die. And I didn't want her to die with me, like telling her a lie. So that was the fear I had, is that my grandmother, when I was younger, she would prepare me, dress me up for church. When I come to church, she would tell her friends, my son, Edafe Okporo, will be a pastor, will be a doctor. So she has a lot of expectation on me. This is the person I respect the most. So I was like, I have to tell her. So I came out to my grandmother.
Go back to that moment. What was that like? Were you like shaking?
I was so like ready after having this interaction with the priest to tell somebody, because my life has always been like hiding and denial. I've not, my friends, some few people I've met in the gay community know, but like to the broader public, they are thinking one day I will get married to a woman. So I was kind of ready. So when I go close to my grandmother and said, hey, Granny, I think I like other men. I'm gay. She turned to me. She was very weak and like tired. She just hugged me and was like, it's going to be okay. I love you. It's going to be okay. That's all she said. So when I got up from that place, I knew that if my grandmother, who is very religious, could love me and accept me, there is no other person I couldn't come out to. That was the moment that like changed the outcome of my life.
So that was a seminal moment in your life. And I think for all us LGBTQ questioning folk, right, there's a moment when you're like, I'm different, right? And then you explained that so eloquently with the debate and all the team and all that, as a little boy that played with little girls and played with dolls. That's what I did. But then there's a moment when you're like, I'm gay and I'm okay, right? And that acceptance part. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think that acceptance is a gradual process. Even up to today, I'm still coming out in different places. Like, if I go to a new job, I have to tell people when they're talking about their relationship, I have to say, oh, my fiance, oh, we're gay. Other people will just say, oh, my partner, and they'll just talk about their relationship. So sometimes I have to ask myself, should I come out in this place or should I not? So when I came out to my grandmother, I didn't still have the courage to tell other people, like my mother, my father, my sisters, my brothers. It took me time to come out to each person one after the other in like different circumstances.
After you told, so your grandmother was a pivotal moment. And I think that you and I were just talking, we had coffee in Bryant Park, or juice in Bryant Park. And you were just talking about how, why is it that we all may have a similar experience, whether it's being abused or being ambushed, as you were many times. And one person strays the other way or thinks about suicide, and one person continues to, use those wounds for wisdom.
Yeah.
So grandmother was that person for you? Or?
So yeah, I feel like my grandmother was always whispering to me that Edafe, it will be okay. You'll be fine. A few years ago, I did an off-Broadway play on Studio 59. And part of the play, I talked about when I was in the detention center, like all hope. I'll go back to that. I just want to make a reference.
Yeah,
I felt like all hope was lost.
Yeah.
And I felt like my grandmother whispered to me, like, you have gone through a lot. Don't give up.
Mm.
So I'm a very religious person, and I feel like my grandmother, who brought me into religion, has always held my hand when things are very difficult. Like when I feel like I don't have a place to stay, I don't have food to eat, she's like always there to be like, you'll be fine. Because those affirmations she gave to me as a child continued because she didn't push me away when I came out to her. So those affirmations continued even after that moment.
So, I mean, for me, one of the biggest things is, for the people out there watching that haven't come out or that are thinking about it or questioning, is to find an ally, right? And to find somebody, that be grandmother or somebody that you can confide in.
You have to come out to yourself first. I think before I went to my grandmother, I walked around and screamed, I'm gay, I'm gay, I'm gay. It's just like trying to come out to yourself because it's like a dissociation.
Yeah.
You grew up in a society, everybody's heterosexual, things are going fine. And in Nigeria, 97% of the country says that gay people are the cause of the country problems. So there's strong homophobia against gay people. And we are 52% Muslim, 48% Christian. Religion has a hold on the country. So to come out as a gay person in Nigeria takes a lot of courage. And I didn't know this until I left Nigeria, looking back to all the obstacles that a gay person face in the society. Is like a lot. There's like rejection from your family. There's like difficulty in securing a job, a place to live. Even when I moved from like my home to like the city, there's so many gay people that fled their different places and moved to the city, and we all live together in like a 2-bedroom apartment. We are like 10 people living there because these people no longer have family. The family they have are the people that also fled their family. So before you come out, you have to come out to yourself first, and you have to be ready because you are not going to tell people and people are just going to say, oh, I love you, I accept you. You have to really build that foundation.
And you have to be ready also for them rejection and for them not, just like you can't expect them to accept you. You can't, right away. You can't also, it goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't expect them to be like, hallelujah, praise the Lord, like, accept you right away. They have to go through the process just like you have to go through that process, right?
I totally agree.
So go back to the moment where you were ambushed, the moment where, you were sleeping, right? That one night. Can you go back there and tell that story?
It's a very difficult experience. I try to tell it the best way I can, and I will try as best as I can. So before I was ambushed, that I fled my country, I've been ambushed before. When I graduated from college, I faced the mob violence, which I told in the book. And in college, I also faced the mob violence. So in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory where I was living in, it was kind of like a safe haven for gay people, whereby you can kiss and don't tell. Then in 2014, the government of Nigeria then passed a law that criminalizes same-sex relation by 14 years imprisonment. And after that law was passed, non-state actors, these are people that are not police or military, they now take these laws into their hands and they ambush people in communities. In the community I was living in Abuja, Durumi community, when I have anxiety, I laugh. It's a way I can be able
Your anxiety, you laugh. Okay. Yeah.
Handle my anxiety. So the Durumi community where I was living in, they have been targeting me for some time. Because if someone is harassed by police, I go to bail them out because I'm an activist. When a community is like ambushing somebody, I go there with police to be like, stop those people and like separate the person. So people have been saying that I think I know the law. I think I have power. They'll come for me one day. They'll come for me one day. So on my birthday, my friends and I, we went to Wuse to, it's like the bar area in Abuja. We drank, we had fun. So my friends, they drove me back home. So my partner then kissed me on my cheek, entered his car and left. So I went to bed thinking that everything is fine. I was woken up by a mob. They were banging on my door that you're gay. We found out we're going to kill you. So when I woke up, I was just wearing briefs. I got up, I ran to the window because it's like a studio apartment on the other side to like jump out of the window. But there were people on that side too. They were screaming, gay, gay. So like crowd gathered my apartment front and back. They were screaming, gay, gay. So they broke my door down. In the brief I was in, they dragged me out and they were using sticks and stuff to like beat me up. And children, they like celebrating that they were sweeping behind me. It's like stuff like they're wiping, they're sanitizing the community from this homosexuality. So I blacked out during that episode. And when I woke up, I was in a clinic and I knew I had to flee Nigeria.
Who took you to the clinic?
So the clinic I was working in is we provide health services for gay men. My ID was in my stuff. So
somebody
took me to that clinic.
Wow. And then it was 2016, you finally made the escape?
I went to United Arab Emirates. I couldn't seek asylum there. I came back to my country and I had to flee. So I fled to Cairo. Then I came to JFK seeking asylum. 2016. It was like a few days before the presidential election between Trump and Hillary Clinton. Even I was sitting at the airport because when I got to the airport, I was like, they stamped my passport. I have a US visa. They're like, welcome to America. But I didn't have friends or family here. So when I sat in the airport waiting for them to process my asylum paperwork, the beginning paperwork, Trump was on TV. It was at JFK. It was saying that it was campaigning. I think it's in New Mexico. It's like, we're going to build the wall and we're going to keep them out. I didn't know who Trump was. I didn't know anything about the US immigration that much because my idea of the US was based on when I was a child, the Nigerian soccer team, they qualified for the US 96 Olympic Games and they won the Olympic Games, soccer games. When they came back to Nigeria, they were celebrating the United States. That's all I know.
Yeah. And so America to you and, your, growing up in Warri in Africa was land of the free, home of the brave, opportunity, freedom, safety. But, right. And you're escaping literally being killed as a homosexual, right? And you're going to New York, Statue of Liberty, right? And like home of the brave, land of the free, right? And then opportunity. And then you're met with another rock and a hard place, right?
Yeah. So I've always admired the United States. Most people who live outside the US, they admire the US. Like if you're a US tourist, you travel somewhere, they'll be like, you're from America. Oh my God, like that. I've seen Coming to America.
Yeah, Coming to America, Eddie Murphy, yeah.
There are kids who want to be like Jay-Z. They want to visit Atlanta, Hollywood, San Francisco. Like America is the end all be all for most people. But when I came here, I didn't have any expectation. I didn't know what to expect. After I asked for asylum at the border, the US immigration put me on handcuffs and they put like shackles on my waist, chains up to my leg, like as if I was like a criminal.
So they brought you from JFK to the Elizabeth Detention Center in New Jersey, right? Yeah. And then again, it's like you're a slave there, right? You felt like that. You wrote in the book.
At the detention center, I worked for $1 a day because I came to the US with no money really. And in the detention center, you have to buy food. You have to place phone call to be able to look for a lawyer. And there's no window. You can't see outside. So in the roof of our detention center, there's like sunlight can come in like a box. So that's how we know that it's day and it's night. And when it snow in the winter, the window was covered by the snow.
So it's dark.
So it was dark. And it was really difficult for me as a gay person and as an African, because most people in the detention center are from countries whereby they still have stigma against gay people. And as an openly gay person in the detention center, like people from Latin America, they call me mariconas, like that. They're like joking with me.
So which is a derogatory term for gay. Men.
And it's like difficult to shower with other people because they feel like if you're a gay person, you want to sleep with
all the guys. So
The shocking thing for me is that the US treats immigrants like as if they are like criminals, quote unquote. And that was something that was really shocking for me.
Yeah. So what I love about your book too, it's you so eloquently weave your story, your authentic path to who you really are and self-love with so many amazing factoids about how in almost over 70 countries it's illegal to be gay,
Yeah.
right? And then you found out that there's a big crack in the system for asylees,
Yeah.
right?
So
And then you became an activist. And not only you're fleeing from being an activist and almost being killed in Africa to being an activist in this detention center, which is, I
yeah.
mean,
So
amazing.
while I was at the detention center, there was an Honduran trans lady, all features of a woman, but she couldn't change her birth certificate in Honduras from man to woman. So they kept her in a male detention center, and people were trying to harass her. So that was how I came out in the detention center that I'm also a gay person, and you cannot treat her like that because she's transgender, and you guys so like that. So I was trying to speak up for her. When I came out of the detention center after 5 months and 14 days, I didn't have a place to stay. I became homeless.
Yeah.
And I discovered that that is what most immigrants face.
Yeah, because you wrote in here that that there was really no roadmap. There is no roadmap to when you leave the detention center.
And
No
most
jobs.
Americans think that if you are granted asylum or refugee status,
you're put in a system where they hold your hand. No, right?
Their life is good.
And you write here in page 54, this should have been one of the happiest moments of my life. Freedom, survival, but I was engulfed with sadness. I was giving up on the possibility of building a life in Nigeria, and then like you come here to then experience this. So take us, you're on the streets now, right? So take us back to this moment and how scary that is, and then like, but then again, there's a light. You saw some light at the end of the tunnel. So you explain a little bit about that, like leaving and like, where do I go now? I'm homeless.
So I took my bag from the detention center. They opened the door. I kissed the floor because that was the first day that I really walked into the United States. Because when I came into the airport, I didn't walk outside the airport. I was just in JFK, from JFK to Elizabeth. I kissed the floor. I held my bag. I was like, what do I do next? But luckily, there's an organization called First Friends of New Jersey and New York. So they have volunteers who visit people in detention center. So they paid for me to live at the YMCA for 2 weeks.
Wow.
In Newark. So while I was at the YMCA, I connected with a friend who came to Nigeria for a PhD dissertation, and she, through Facebook from the Newark Public Library, and she offered me to stay in a pull-up mattress in Queens. And while I was there, I got my first job.
Oh, and the first job was?
I worked at Edafe Okporo. So they're an all refugee-based agency. They help refugees resettle through integration into the job market. So while I was at Edafe Okporo, I only worked there for 5 months. I discovered that most refugees who were coming here, displaced asylum seekers, they were saying that they don't have a place to stay. They're doing sex work. Somebody even told me to have HIV. That if I have HIV, there's housing for people living with HIV and AIDS. So I didn't want people to be going through that. So I founded the first shelter in New York City called RDJ Refugee Shelter that provided housing for LGBTQ displaced people. And that was the work that made me found my voice and myself in America, because while I was doing that work, I got to see the challenges that bring people from different countries to seek asylum in America, from Jamaica, Guyana, Saudi Arabia, Iran. We have different laws in our countries, like in Russia, it was Chechnya, the Chechnya Purge. In Syria, it's like Islamic laws. In Jamaica, it's just social construct of like who gay people are. Then some are like former British colonial perennial laws that criminalize gay people. But they all come to the US hoping to build a better life. And when they come here with the expectation that I also add to, that America is this place where they can live their dreams, they discover that they find themselves homeless on the streets.
And a nightmare.
And they don't have a place to stay.
So the saving grace really was First Friends, right? And then you in the book, you also write how there were moments where you just really relied on the kindness of others, right?
Yeah, I think that this is what people don't know, is that most refugees, displaced people who resettle in America, it's not the American system that resettles them. It's Americans, individuals that help in resettlement effort. Because um, I remember my first birthday year. It was just like a group of Americans, a lady that brought me to a place, made cake for me, and I didn't feel that vacuum of like I'm not in my own country because she made me feel like I was home here. Somebody gave me a pull-up mattress to live in. Somebody gave me a suit for my first job interview. Someone helped me with my resume.
Wow.
Someone smiled with me, and I'm down. And I think that that is like the most important part of like
Life.
our experiences.
Yeah. In our life, right? And what I love too is then you created a nonprofit and you've become an activist all the way through, even at the risk of your life. Can you talk a little bit also about your nonprofit?
Yeah. So right now I run Refugee America. We are the only organization in America that helps LGBTQ displaced people to be able to find access to social services. When I was running the shelter in New York City, it was the only shelter in New York City that helped LGBTQ displaced people find access to housing. And I think that doing this work saved my life too, because through them, I got to live vicariously into being the person I want to be. Because I saw the strength and resilience of like displaced people, and I find that resilience myself. For example, one of the person I told their story, Desta, last year, June, he bought his home
First
in New
home.
Jersey.
Yeah.
And this was somebody that was staying in a shelter in the basement of a church just 4 years ago. So I think that one of the most important issue that we need to address when it comes to like immigrants coming here to live is like, do they have a place to stay? Especially because most immigrants want to live in cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Denver, and housing is very expensive in those places. So when you can provide somebody access to housing, you can help alleviate a lot of the problems they have.
So before you could do that, you talk also about like finding a job. So a lot of refugees come to America, they come with an education and there were doctors and lawyers or engineers or whatever, right? And then all of a sudden they come to America and you were like, I'm not trying to do that job. Like,
I agree with you. So one of the first jobs I was offered here was to pick apples.
Picking apples like at an orchard? Or like, what do you mean? Like picking them out of a like conveyor belt or what?
Thank you for that. I like the humor. So like they have the storage room. So you put them in crates.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm not going to do that. And you won't believe I paid $350 for the agency to place me in a job. So it's like a staffing agency.
Okay, so you paid. Okay.
I paid, and they placed me in this apple picking job, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And after that, they asked me to take a job whereby I will be cleaning like hotels or stuff like that. I'm not going to do that. So it was like all odd jobs. So they don't care. Resettlement agencies, they don't care what degree you have in your country. They describe sustainability for you having 3 consecutive paychecks. Doesn't matter what the salary level is.
And then eventually you got an education. And can you talk a little bit about that? Because that was one of your dreams, right?
Yeah. So when I left my country, I was in my last semester of my master's program there, but I had to come to the US and start all over again. So I applied for my transcripts and applied to NYU. And, when I got admitted to do my master's in NYU, I couldn't even believe it. And
I mean, NYU.
yeah, I got admitted to NYU and Columbia at the same time.
Wow.
And I just graduated last month from my master's program in NYU. One thing I also think too is that one of the challenge that most immigrants face that we don't highlight a lot of is that, I am a single story. I was able to have an education. I was able to rebuild my life in America. But when I was leaving the detention center, 99% of the people that were waving me there that day would not step their foot in America. And if we cannot protect the people that don't have like large voices like the way I can speak in public and stuff like that, then we cannot be able to protect immigrant rights in general. Because I feel like in the long, to make a long sentence short, is that the reason why I'm visible, the reason why I try to raise voices about the issues LGBTQ immigrant face is that most of them are traditionally from marginalized communities and they fear visibility. And because they fear visibility, they don't speak about those issues. And I try to be like, okay, let me make my story approachable for people to come in so that they can be able to see further those challenges other people in the community face.
So, and I just applaud you for being brave enough to not only be an activist, but then to share your story. I mean, you did not set out to in America to write this book that New York Times has written about and all these other big publications. Like, how did that all come about? Like, that was not in your crystal ball, right, for you?
Yeah.
So explain to the folks at home how this all came about.
In 2020, during the George Floyd murder protest, I was doing protest in the city. I was speaking about my identity as a racially ambiguous person in America. I'm Black, but in the Black community, I'm African. To whites, I'm Black, you know, so it's like the intersection of being Black, gay, and a refugee. And an agent found me during a protest, and it's like, you have a strong voice. Do you want to write a book?
A book agent, literary agent.
A literary agent. So I was like, writing a book is very challenging. I don't think I can do that right now. And it's like, you have a story that the world needs to hear, then you should write a book. So I took on the responsibility of writing a book.
But no, what you were on vacation. You were like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with writing this book, right?
I am my partner. We're in QSL.
Yeah.
So the agent wrote me in QSL. I was like, I want you to write a proposal in 2 weeks. I was like, no, I'm not really writing a proposal right now because I'm on vacation. He was like, you have to write it. So it was very short window, very compressed period of time. And through this process, I learned that, you know, maybe it's karma, maybe it's the universe that brought you together, but there have never been a book written by a gay Nigerian in a first I statement.
First person statement. That there's never been? Really?
Never.
Wow, okay.
So I'm the first gay Nigerian that wrote a book in a first person narrative about my sexual orientation and identity. And LGBTQ refugees are not really vocal about their identity. So it's like I'm shining visibility on communities that want to stay not visible. So one of the stuff I have seen is that many people from the gay Nigerian diaspora community, they're angry with me. They're like, it's okay that we are going through this stuff, but you don't have to talk about it.
Yeah, because there's a lot of, like, in the Black and Asian and Latino communities, it's like kind of like don't ask and tell, like, you know, or you walk around with your family, right? And they know you're gay, or they may know you're gay, or whether you tell them or not, right? Or somebody's told them. And there's this, we know, but don't celebrate it, don't talk about it. And that
you
really
can be gay,
yeah,
but you're accepted, but you're not celebrated.
Yeah, and there's a amazing part in this book where you talk about you know, being seen for the first time, you know, with your grandmother, and then through other people. There's a place, one of my favorite, this book is really about I think self-love, and one of the favorite kind of excerpts is on page 176, where you say, I am a preacher, not a pastor, and how you talked about trading, you know, religion. You said for self-love, right? And you said, my gospel is no longer the doctrines of the Bible, but of humanity. I do not have to be a religious leader to teach about love. I do believe in God's love, as many queer people do around the world, but I now preach self-love and an inherent love one another. And I read that and I'm like getting the chills. I mean, so was a big shift in your life, and when things started to blow up in terms of like your personal, professional, spiritual financial journey, right? Can you talk about this like metamorphosis you were just telling me about, of how like you knew that things would be okay, your grandmother told you, and it came full circle, right?
Yeah. So, we live in a society that if you want to create change, you have to be willing to live in uncertainty. Because as an activist, you don't expect to make money or live a sustainable life.
Yeah. That's not why you do it.
Activists I know, they live horrible lives. They died in horrible situations. All the major activists I know. So I wanted to also build a life for myself. And this was like the fear I had. And this was the fear my mother had, is that she felt like becoming an activist meant that I'm going to be poor for life. And she wanted me to be successful so I could take care of her.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
So,
yeah, right. Because you're her security and insurance, right?
Yeah.
That's like in the Asian community. Yeah.
So coming to America, I didn't want to be an activist.
Yeah.
I said it in the book. But if there's injustice and you keep a blind eye to it, I have a strong sense of justice, like right and wrong. So I couldn't keep a blind eye to it. So it was as a result of doing good for others that I was a recipient of other good things. And also, I think that we all are looking for religion, not in the church sense, but in community.
The religion of people and humanity.
Yeah, because religion is actually in the root of it is a community.
Yeah.
Like-minded people coming together. And that is what I have seen too in my life in New York City, is that I have built a religion, and the religion is like people who care about making the world a better place.
Kindness.
Yes.
Lifting, shifting, gifting,
let's go,
uplifting people.
Let's celebrate, let's uplift each other, then let's fight for the ones that are not visible enough or are afraid to step their toe on water.
So your religion is love.
It's love and acceptance.
So speaking about love and acceptance, how do you learn to trust after you've been ambushed and people in your family don't accept you, and you come to America and your dream became a nightmare? Like, where did you get the strength from?
I'm in therapy.
Therapy and grandmother, you said. Oh, I'm all for therapy, right? It's shunned in a lot of the Asian communities too, right?
Just like in Africa,
yeah.
But also, aside from therapy, being a very religious person taught me a lot about faith. The Bible says that, I'm not trying to quote the Bible in the sense of like Christian religion, but it's
not trying to be woo-woo, religious-y. I got it.
It said that if you have faith as little as a mustard seed, you will move mountains.
I love that quote. It's one of my favorites.
So that is the sometimes I have to be like, Daffy, you have to move with blind faith. I live in America for 6 years now. I have uncertainty about my future. I'm not a US citizen, but I'm building a life out of blind faith that everything would work out.
Oh, that's beautiful. What would we were talking about I felt like prior to this, we had a little bit of like tete-a-tete, like a little bit of like tea time in Bryant Park, and we were just talking about our little boys, like they feel like we're just little boys playing, right? So what would you tell your 5-year-old Edafe, your 10-year-old Edafe that was so scared and felt like there was no way out? Because I know many people watching or listening feel like that.
I'll tell him that you're too old to advise yourself
now. Right?
Because I think that curiosity is very good in life, because every experiences I had as a younger person led me to who I am now, and I wouldn't want to trade any of them. But now I would tell myself that you just have to be more courageous, because courage have led you to where you are right now. Don't allow the system to change you, because coming to America, I came from a very communal background. America is very individualistic and it's like capitalistic. So you tend to want to make more income, rather than thinking about the social good you can make in the world. So I tell myself to be more courageous because courage led me to where I am right now.
I mean, you sound very courageous to me. I don't know what you're talking about. We have different thresholds of, I mean, fleeing the country and then now finding your boo, right? You're getting married in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your situation? Just as much as our little as you want.
I don't know who's watching right now, who's listening, but
hey, we came here to tell the truth and be real.
Lips sealed. I'm getting married very soon. It's something that
Congrats.
I'm excited about because when I was growing up, I never knew I would be able to like live to this day. Because
literally live to this day. Yeah.
Because it was 3 options. 1 was to like die like Uncle Tony of HIV. 2 was to die from mob attack. 3 was to hide and get married to a woman. So I feel like America has given me the opportunity to build a life, and it will continue to give people opportunity to build their life if we continue to uphold what America stands for, which is the land of the free, the home of the brave. And this does not only apply to immigrants who come from Europe, it also applies to Latinx immigrants, it also applies to Asia, Caribbean, Africa, because my experience is rooted in systemic racism. It was being treated like a criminal from the airport to the detention center, left homeless. Like at each point of the way, I could have fallen through the cracks and not be here today. But it was by sheer grace that I found myself here and the goodwill of people. So how do we create a system that people don't have to fall through the cracks? And how do we create a system that is not racially biased towards immigrants who don't come from white, quote unquote, countries?
Yeah, and you're doing that through your book, just with the, the tidbits of factoids and the history lesson and weaving your story. What has your journey as an Asylee and as an activist, in this harrowing and heroic, horrific, but inspiring journey, what has this all taught you?
You're the first person that asked me this question, so thank you. I've been doing a book talk for 3 weeks.
Book talk? I asked that question that nobody asked.
It's a better question. One thing it has taught me is that I'm still finding myself, and we all have to continue being open to finding ourselves. Because if I typecast myself with where I have come from to where I am now, I will continue to live in the past. Because everything that ended with the book is now my past. That I should be open to a new future, brave and bold future. Because when I was younger, my goal at 30 was to have ₦1 million. At 30, I was living in Manhattan. ₦1 million is $3,000. It might not get you an apartment or the other on a very good day. So I had a self-bigotry of low expectation. And that is one thing it has shown me, that your environments, the people around you, and your circumstances can make it difficult for you to see any other possibility for a brighter future. So I'm opening myself to the possibility that even things that I never dreamt of, that I never thought about, that I didn't think was possible, should come my way going forward. Because if I used my expectation of when I was coming to America with just $120 in my pocket, I don't know where I will be living right now.
Yeah, $120 in your pocket is not going to get you much.
Because my expectation then was just to have food to eat and survive. So that taught me that, you have to expect more than what your capacity to think.
Dream a bigger dream than you can dream yourself. What would you tell the folks at home that are watching or listening that are really struggling with self-love in any form? Because this book really connects, whether you're a refugee or not, asylee or not, coming to accept and love yourself is really the theme of this book, right?
Self-love is contagious. If you're struggling with self-love, you have to find people and things that exhibits that so that you can attach from it. There are times when I came to America that I'll be listening to Steve Harvey, motivational talks from Steve Harvey, motivational talks from people, Tara J.P. Henson, people who have really gone through the struggle to get there. And you see sometimes like AOC was a bartender.
So I know, I can't believe it. AOC was a bartender, and then look at her now, right?
So I think that people think it's like woo-woo mentality to listen to motivational talk. Self-love is contagious. If you see somebody that exhibits it, listen to them. Like you can take a percentage from them. They don't mind. That's why they have shared it out there.
And learning from people's stories. So now we wanted to open it up. Speaking about sharing stories and questions, it's Q&A time. We have a few minutes for that. And we're getting a bunch of questions in. Let me take a look here. The producers are sending it in now. The book's subtitle is Memoir and Manifesto. What changes would you like to see for improving the asylum system? Let's start there. That's a big question. Thank you.
Question. So first of all, when I was writing in the book, I wanted to make sure that people know that there are detention centers in America, and they are beginning to see some changes in private detention facilities. The California state will fade out the use of private prisons for detaining immigrants by 2028. Elizabeth, where I was detained, they will fade out by 2026. Wow. So I want to see an end to the use of private prisons in detaining immigrants.
I mean, it's a big business, right?
I made mention of the cost. It's traded in the public market. So if you go to other countries like Canada and the Netherlands, when you come in, they give you a place to stay instead of keeping you in a detention center. Right now, there have not been a comprehensive immigration law in America since 1980 by the US Congress.
Wow.
And
we're behind, y'all.
Yeah, we need a comprehensive asylum law that will meet the 21st century, because there's so many executive orders that have clogged the asylum system. That's what I would say, because I don't think, even though we don't change the laws, we have to change how we treat displaced people, because the current system does not see the humanity in people seeking protection.
That's beautiful. Another question is, how can countries really deliver on the international obligations to support vulnerable displaced people? Well, that's a big one too.
Yeah.
A smart audience.
A lot of people thought that the US is one of the leading countries in resettlement of immigrants or refugees. That is not true. It's for about 5 years now, the leading countries are Lebanon, Turkey, and Ethiopia. Because when a refugee flees their country, they become a refugee when they go to the next country. So if you are fleeing Syria and you go to Lebanon, you are a refugee in Lebanon. And if you are fleeing Sudan and you go to Ethiopia, you're a refugee in Ethiopia. If you are fleeing Europe and you come to Turkey, you're a refugee in Turkey. And these three countries inhabit a lot of refugees. I think that a lot of countries now are also passing laws that are anti-asylum seekers, like in Europe, like UK want to send people to Rwanda. Hungary is becoming like right-wing conservative American immigration policies. So how can we fulfill the obligation if the government of the country that is elected is gearing towards passing harmful legislation? We can't really make any change. So people always say that, oh, I've voted all the time, nothing really changed. Government is slow. So I think we have to vote in leaders that view immigration as a plus and a positive to the entire country. And that will be very important in helping change the views towards displaced people. Because if the US signed a refugee treaty and the Biden administration is trying to resettle refugees, the system was broken for 4 years. So it will take time to get to that level. But I think that we're making progress. We just need to continue pushing this agenda of like refugees are vulnerable people and they need the support of like wealthy countries to step up to do more resettlements.
And when we were talking too, doing some just pre-production calls and just getting to know each other, we also talked about, wow, I mean, these questions that are coming in are really big questions. The system is it's big, and no matter what country you are, whether you're an asylee or a refugee. But the idea of starting small, like your mustard seed quote, is really beautiful. And let me remind everybody that there's something little everybody could do, right?
Yeah.
Something small that you could do is if you see somebody out in the street that looks displaced, to if you can't help them physically, with money or food, maybe point them to nonprofits like First Friends, right? We all have the power
Yeah.
to make a difference.
So I think that's one thing I discovered recently through my journey is the power of like small things. I was in Boise, Idaho, March 1st to give a speech on the Idaho Conference on Refugees. And when I was speaking, one of the refugees came to me. He's a US citizen now. He's now a US citizen, former refugee. He was like, you inspire me a lot. I want to be like you one day. I want to speak like you, but I have a story to tell you. So I was like, tell me the story. So it was like, when I came from Syria 11 years ago, I don't speak any English. You see me speaking English now? I learned it in America. But one day, I was trying to look for a place. I just came here. I was on the phone. I don't understand the stuff. An American lady stopped and came down from her bike and rode a bike in Boise, Idaho with me. I was walking and took me to the place where I would apply for Social Security.
Wow.
So
the chills thing.
So that moment was a pivotal moment in his life. He said he didn't want to learn English, but because of how the lady treated him, he decided to learn English.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
You understand?
Yeah.
So it's like many people think that they have to do a big thing to change somebody's life. It's very small things. It's like when I was leading the shelter, a lot of Americans, they take people to the Statue of Liberty for the very first time just to show them New York.
And that's like a seminal moment for people, especially coming from other countries. Speaking of that, another question we have is, what advice do you have for regular people, not activists, who want to help LGBTQ asylum seekers? And that's a good one.
Yeah, there's so many organizations that are helping LGBTQ asylum seekers in almost every community. I always tell people to support grassroots organization. In San Francisco, they have the Dashon Network. It's a shelter that house LGBTQ asylum seekers in San Francisco. And I lead an organization called Refugee America. We help LGBTQ displaced people find access to social services across the 50 states. I think those little grassroots organizations like Caribbean Equality in New York City, Queer Detainee Empowerment Projects, you have to go approach them and say you want to volunteer your time, donate money. I think time is the most important asset because when somebody's new here, life is like very difficult. They don't know how to take the train. They want to have somebody to talk to. During Thanksgiving, they don't have a family. Christmas, they don't. So I think that's like trying to learn about these grassroots organizations that are offering shelters across the country and volunteering to support them is a good way to start.
Yeah, and there's so many other nonprofits out there and places, like you said, the grassroots nonprofits who help you find jobs and understand the system, because the system in America here is very convoluted.
It's very convoluted.
Like whether it's job or asylum, asylee. Another question too is, what's the difference between asylum, right, coming for asylum as an asylee, and a refugee?
An asylee is a refugee, but it depends on how you come into the country. When you leave your country and go to another country and apply for refugee status in Kenya and you're moved here, you're considered quote unquote a refugee. But an asylee is a refugee who got to the border of the country and asked for protection at the border. That's just the difference. It's how you travel. But now I'm a refugee in the US.
And congratulations for that. And congratulations on your book. That's all the time we have today. But thank you so much for sharing your story and your heart and your truth with the world. I mean, literally, there's moments in here where I got teary-eyed and reading this book. I mean, as you could see or hear, like all my little Post-it notes here. It was really a pleasure connecting with you on this authentic soul level. I mean, this made me think about what more can I do and what more can people do at home watching. So it's all about the small things. Asylum, a Memoir and Manifesto by Edafe Okporo. You can find it at all your local bookstores, or just bookstores wherever books are sold, right? And where can we follow you on Twitter and all the IG and all that?
My first name and last name.
Edafe Okporo, and we'll include all of this stuff in the video, the podcast, and the YouTube channel. To learn more about World Affairs, you can go to their website at worldaffairs.org. You can find them live streaming this and just a bunch of yummy stuff, the podcast, the radio stuff, all that. My name is Toan Lam. You can find me at Toan Lam TV on all the socials. And congratulations, personally, professionally, spiritually, and for like using your power and all the challenges to just shed light on so many other people. So I'm very grateful for you for sharing this time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thanks y'all for watching.